On today's episode, Tesla begins construction of Giga Mexico, Chinese authorities squash a deal between Tesla and their competition, and Mercedes joins the growing list of companies pushing for NACS adoption. After over 4 months of waiting, the government of Nuevo León, Mexico, has confirmed that Tesla could be given permission to begin construction of their new Gigafactory at any moment. Tesla's next great factory has been anticipated since even before the company announced its location during their Investor Day event on March 1st, and once it had been revealed that the facility would be in northern Mexico, it seemed as though Tesla would begin construction at their usual breakneck speed. But on June 29th, internal reports from the company to their partners in China stated that the new Gigafactory would likely be delayed long enough to push its production start all the way into 2025. Without much more data at the time, many thought the delay would likely be because of the location. Giga Mexico is being constructed on a patch of arid desert near Santa Catarina, and doing any large-scale construction there would involve working around certain environmental issues, supplying water to the construction crews being chief among them. But according to Governor Samuel Garcia of Nuevo León, it was actually paperwork that had stood in Tesla's way for this long. Any build project requires a binder full of permits to be checked and signed, but this is a colossal factory being built by a foreign company in an area where water conservation is a real issue, so it makes sense that even the extremely friendly local government would have to spend some time clearing all the permits needed to start construction. But as Governor Garcia told local news outlet Milenio on July 7th, all the permits for the environment, energy, water, everything is already checked. It is advancing, which is great news, of course. Tesla's work crews are probably starting to transport materials and equipment to the site as we speak, but this also means that Tesla hasn't actually had a chance to see if the local conditions will actually impede construction yet. This is likely the reason for their communications with their supply partners in China at the end of June. Because if the permits really are just days away from being authorized, then Tesla had to know that. The local government is in pretty constant communication with the company and would likely have kept them up to speed on what was happening with their construction status. And we know that the two entities are in close communication because of the comments made by officials close to the project. Remember that new report from the Milenio on July 7th? Well, the governor also told their reporters that the new model of vehicle Tesla intends to build at Giga Mexico is now in the final stages of its design, and that all the production lines, software, and other major factory infrastructure has already been planned out. We will circle back to that bit about Tesla's new model of vehicle in a moment, because it's that last part that gives us our biggest clue that Tesla knows building Giga Mexico is going to take longer than they would like. They've already been planning their execution. This is a pretty common practice in large-scale commercial construction. As we mentioned previously, permits can take a while to get. Large industrial projects often require exemptions and exceptions to certain local laws that have to be argued over. Environmental impact studies often have to be completed, plans and blueprints have to be inspected, local communities have to be informed. All of this means that project managers often have a lot of time to prepare, and that time is usually spent looking over the site and identifying problems that will end up delaying the build. So by now, the project managers know where they will be getting materials and workers from and how far they will have to travel to get to the site, as well as what it will take to keep the workers safe. Knowing exact site logistics and calculating the various factors involved means that they would have a pretty clear idea of how difficult it will be to build this factory, and certainly enough to tell their partners when they'll need components to begin making their new vehicle. Speaking of, it's time we circled back to that bit of information. The governor mentioned that this administration had been given information that Tesla's new vehicle was in the final stage of design, allowing Tesla to make plans right down to the production lines and software. That is some pretty huge news, considering no one has caught so much of a glimpse of a tarp-covered mystery car, and Tesla watchers are pretty good at spotting things coming out of the company's factories. It is possible that Tesla meant that the concept design has been just about completed, which would make sense, especially with Giga Mexico's production start being pushed back to 2025. There wouldn't be a huge rush to get a prototype built. They wouldn't even have a production line to test parts on. Getting word that the permits are just about ready is very good news regardless of the extra time it took. Tesla is really banking on Giga Mexico to be their next showcase facility, and the rest of us would really love to get a new, cheaper model of EV. It has been a hectic few months in China as Tesla wrestles with local competition to secure a place in the Asian country's growing EV market. Since January, the company has been lowering the prices of vehicles across their fleet in order to appeal to Chinese customers. This led some of the local companies to start doing the same, lowering prices in a bid to outdo each other for months now, until sometime last month, when talks between the companies began. These price cuts were great for the consumers, except for the confusing fluctuations, but not so good for the companies fighting for the top spot. However, these talks seemed to go well. 16 China-based auto companies got together and hashed out a deal. Companies like BYD, XPeng, Geely, and of course Tesla all sat down and came up with some rules of engagement for their future dealings, and on July 6th, executives from all 16 companies sat down for a public signing. The non-binding agreement's core was built around keeping everyone's pricing from wildly disrupting business. Only small changes within reason were to be allowed in order to maintain fair competition. Other rules govern the use of publicity, making sure the signatories wouldn't say false or exaggerated things to get customers. The companies would also pledge to keep the quality of their products high, no cutting corners to get higher profits. And finally, as China is a communist country, in name at least, the signatories had to promise to promote core socialist values, mainly those centered around social and community responsibility and safety. This sort of cooperation is actually fairly common in Western countries, but China isn't like those countries, and the China Automobile Manufacturers Association saw a glaring flaw in the deal. It was illegal. The wording of the very first part of the agreement, specifically that the companies would not disrupt the fair competition order of the market with abnormal prices, was not acceptable according to CAMA. This line, while being presented as a promotion of fair competition, violated the spirit of China's anti-monopoly law. At first, this seems pretty unfair. China's EV market has been the Wild West for months now, and any sort of agreement would go a long way to stabilizing things a bit. But CAMA didn't say the rest of the deal was bad, just that this one line needed to be amended before it was approved by the government. And to be fair to CAMA, this is their job. Things are different in Western countries, where monopoly laws are mostly toothless. These companies would have to communicate with each other about their prices in order to not lower or raise them by abnormal amounts, which could easily lead to these 16 companies deciding together what their prices will be regardless of demand. That's a lot of power for profit-driven groups to have. Aside from all of that, though, these companies realizing there is a problem and coming together to try and solve it is a big step. Maybe with a bit of communication between them and CAMA, these automakers can find a way to settle the market without breaking any laws. Well, we can add Mercedes-Benz to the list of major automakers who have announced that they will be using Tesla's North American charging standard from now on. The German luxury car maker announced on July 7th that they would be adopting the NACS for their electric vehicle line, gaining access via adapters by 2024, and fully integrating the port type into their vehicle designs by 2025. They'll even have access to Tesla's application API, meaning Mercedes users will be able to locate nearby Tesla charging stations on their own apps. The deal mirrors the one made by GM and Ford over a month ago now, adding one more big name to the growing list of automakers and charging companies who are pushing the governments of North America to adopt the NACS as the actual standard over the clunky and inefficient CCS design. Mercedes is the first German company to agree to integrate Tesla's charging port, giving some hope that this movement could spread to Europe someday, but there's also reports that longtime Tesla rival Volkswagen is also discussing making the swap to NACS. The push to get NACS adopted in North America has been wildly successful in an extremely short period of time, but the EU is a much harder nut to crack. Regardless of how clearly superior Tesla's charger is, the CCS might take more time to be dethroned in Europe. Here, though, it seems like there's no going back. Most industry experts believe that the NACS adoption was a done deal after Ford announced their partnership with Tesla back in May, and with more and more companies announcing their support, it's hard to think that the NACS won't be the actual standard by this time next year. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up today if you liked it. That is so important for getting our content out to more people. If you enjoy the content, then you'd probably also enjoy our weekly newsletter. So sign up with the link down below at theteslaspace.com. A huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters who are listed on the screen now. You help us make the best content we can, and we really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.